The puzzle of perspective. Two people can sit in the same meeting and leave with two very different stories. The owner thinks, well, we agreed on the next step. The manager thinks, I thought we were discussing options. And the employee thinks, no one listened to my concerns at all. The owner thinks, well, I gave them plenty of room to speak. The customer thinks, they do not care about my problems at all. They're all in it for the money. The team thinks, we're doing the best we can. Everyone is looking at the same business, but they're not seeing the same thing. And that's not uncommon. That that is the puzzle of perspective. It shows up in small ways much longer before it becomes a big issue. A quick hallway conversation becomes like a missed expectation, just a crossing of communication that misses. A leadership meeting can end with like the nodding of heads, right? And then a week later, everyone brings back a completely different version of what they thought was decided. Like wondering, like, were we even in the same room? From the owner's seat, this can be very frustrating. You might feel like we've already explained this. You might even feel like people are making assumptions and adding emotion or missing the amount of effort that's happening behind the curtains. And you might be right. But being right too quickly can still cost you a lot of information. Perspective is powerful because it feels like truth from the inside. Each person sees what they see, they feel what they feel, and build a story around the information that's available to them through their eyes, through their ears, through their experiences, through their stories. That doesn't make every perspective accurate, but it does make every perspective useful. This is also where our stories of origin really start to matter. Each of us carries a history into the room. We carry the way that we grew up, the way authority was handled, the way conflict was handled, the way money was talked about, the way mistakes were treated, and the way we learned to protect ourselves. Over time, those experiences create positions that we learn to stand in. And this all started when we were really young. Some people learn to stay quiet, right? Because speaking up used to cost them, some of them dearly. Some people learn to defend quickly because being wrong used to feel unsafe. Some owners learn that carrying everything to learn how to carry everything because somewhere along the way, they decided that depending on others was just too risky. Those positions do not disappear when we walk into a leadership meeting. They often become the lens through which we interpret everyone else's perspectives, right? We can catch ourselves making assumptions of what the others are thinking. Owners can get into trouble when they dismiss perspectives too quickly. A team member brings up a concern and the owner compares it to what the owner's already carrying, right? It's tough not to, but it's almost a natural reaction. You think this is unclear? I explained it 3 times. Or you think this is unfair? You don't even know the whole picture, right? We're comparing it to the burden of what we think that our perspective is. The reaction might be, it's understandable, especially because usually the owner does see the bigger picture. They know the cash pressure, they know the customer history, the staffing constraints, the sales pipeline, the family sacrifice, and the trade-offs that nobody else has had to carry. So when someone else brings a perspective that feels incomplete, the owner can have an experience as unfair. But incomplete does not mean useless. Sometimes the incomplete perspective is the thing that's showing you where the business is not quite clear enough yet. Sometimes it's also showing you where your own story of origin is reacting before your leadership has a chance to respond, right? This is where reaction beats guidance. Not beats, but gets there first. If your story of origin has taught you that competence means having the answer, Another person's perspective might feel like a challenge to your capability. If your story of origin taught you that mistakes are dangerous, then a team's concerns might feel like accusations. It's not a character flaw, it's just information. And the contrary reframe that we have opportunity is this: perspective is not always the truth, but it's always data. If someone feels overwhelmed, that may not mean that the workload is truly unfair, but it might tell you that the role is unclear, that the priorities are competing, or the person lacks confidence, or even that the communication rhythm is blown, right? They're just not feel like it's getting through. If a team feels confused, that they might not mean the owner failed, but it might tell you that the agreement was mistaken for alignment, right? The nodding was interpreted. The alignment method helps leaders slow down long enough to surface the partial truth before making a decision, to take that deep breath, to listen for the alignment and listen for the misalignment. This matters because a business cannot align around hidden assumptions. It has to bring the perspectives into the open, tests them against the values and the facts, and then together decide what is true enough. That phrase matters, true enough to act on. You do not need to surrender to the owner's judgment just because someone else sees it differently, but you do need a way to separate the feelings from the facts, the missing information, and then the leadership lesson that's available. Sometimes it's for them, sometimes it's for us. Alignment requires a better rhythm. It asks the leader to hear the perspectives without immediately becoming defensive. Then bring the conversation back to the values, the expectations, the roles, the facts, and then the right next step. It also asks the owner to bring awareness into their own position. Where am I standing as I hear this? What's showing up for me? Am I standing in curiosity or am I standing in defense? Am I standing in the values of the business or am I standing in an old story that says I have to protect myself or prove myself or have to carry everything alone? A story that may no longer serve. It may have got you through something, but it may not carry us to the next something. If the owner can notice their own position, they can choose a better response. They can listen without surrendering leadership. They can stay grounded without becoming hard. They can hear the other person without letting every feeling become the final truth. The next time someone brings you a perspective that feels wrong, consider resisting the quick correction, right? Instead, ask, what are they seeing that I might not be seeing? What story might they be standing in? And what story might I be standing in? And how can we help each other? What information might they be missing? Or have I not shared? Or did they have to re-explain? What part of this is feeling? And what part of this is fact? What does our value system require us to do in a deep breath kind of way? You do not have to agree with every perspective, but if you are willing to listen before you decide, you may find that the gap where alignment is breaking down is able to be mended. You might find that the meeting did not end with the decision, it ended with assumptions. You might find that the team heard the words, but they did not understand the priority and the impact. That kind of awareness is not soft. It is leadership information. The next move you take is to not let every perspective run the business. The next move is to bring enough curiosity to the perspective that you can find clarity in the clarity gap that's underneath it, and then feel that in a way that serves them. Then you can decide, you can name what is true, you can correct what is incomplete, and you can clarify what is assumed. You can reconnect the decision to the values of the business, and you can help people leave with the same story, not just the same meeting invite. This is also where managing up becomes so powerful. Managing up is not just pushing people to do better, right? It's calling people to rise up into the value, into the standards and the expectations of the business. It is helping the owner and the manager and the team ask, how do we live this value together in the middle of the tension, not an absent of it, right? How do we run with it? If the value is respect, then respect has to shape how we listen. If the value is accountability, then accountability has to shape how we clarify expectations instead of blaming assumptions. If the value is trust, then the trust has to shape how we quickly we name the concerns and how carefully we repair the misunderstandings, which are natural. This is the opportunity inside the puzzle of perspective. Different perspectives do not have to pull the company apart. When handled well, they can help the company rise. They can reveal where a value needs to become more specific, where a role needs more clarity, and where an owner needs to respond from leadership rather than that old story, the way we did it, and where the team needs to get support each other, how they can support each other at a higher level. If your team keeps leaving conversations with different stories, that is worth paying attention to. A right next step conversation can help you identify where the agreement is being mistaken for alignment, where stories of origin are shaping reactions, and where the business needs a clear way to turn perspective into shared understanding. I so look forward to supporting you along your journey. I hope you have yourself a most wonderful, beautiful day. See you soon.